My beloved child. If these words have found you today, do not think it is because time is chasing you or because you have failed. This story begins at a moment when your heart has grown tired, your mind has become heavy, and hope feels farther away than it has ever been. Yet even in that silence, there remains a light that has never stopped searching for you. For many nights, you have carried questions that no one else could answer. You smiled when people expected you to smile, but inside you wondered if anyone truly understood the battles you fought when no one was watching. There were dreams you quietly placed on a shelf because disappointment became easier than believing again. There were prayers whispered into the darkness that seemed to disappear into the night without an answer. Then came this moment. The clock seemed to pause. Your attention was drawn to these words as though someone had gently called your name. Only 2 minutes left. What could that possibly mean? Was it a warning? Was it a message? Or was it simply an invitation to stop running long enough to listen? In this fictional story, Archangel Michael appears not to predict the future, but to remind a weary soul that courage, hope, and wisdom are always within reach. A calm voice echoed through the silence. My beloved child, fear has spoken loudly in your life, but fear has never been your master. The words carried no anger, only compassion. You have measured yourself by your failures instead of your growth. You have counted every tear but forgotten every victory. As those words settled into the heart of the traveler in this story, forgotten memories returned. The first dream. The first act of kindness. The first promise never to give up. Somewhere along the journey, those memories had been buried beneath disappointment. The voice continued. The greatest battles are often invisible. They are fought inside the heart before they are ever seen by the world. The traveler lowered their head. They realized they had spent months asking, "Why is everything happening to me?" But perhaps another question was waiting to be asked. What can I become because of this? Outside, the wind moved gently through the trees. A single ray of sunlight broke through dark clouds. Nothing miraculous had happened. The world had not suddenly changed. But something inside the traveler had begun to shift. Hope. Small. Fragile. Yet real. The voice spoke again. You keep asking for a sign, but every sunrise has been one. Every new breath has been another. Every opportunity to begin again has been a gift. The traveler remembered every time they had survived something they once believed would destroy them. Heartbreak. Failure. Loneliness. Loss. Yet somehow they were still standing. Perhaps strength had been growing all along. The voice grew softer. My child, stop believing that your worth depends on the opinions of people who never truly knew your heart. Those words broke something inside. Not in a painful way, but like chains quietly falling away. For years the traveler had searched for approval. They had tried to become everything everyone expected. In doing so, they had forgotten who they really were. The silence returned. But this time it felt peaceful instead of empty. The traveler closed their eyes. They took one deep breath. Then another. The weight they had carried for so long no longer felt impossible. The journey ahead would still contain challenges. There would still be days of uncertainty. But there would also be courage. There would be wisdom. There would be moments of unexpected joy waiting around ordinary corners. The voice offered one final thought before fading. My beloved child, your story is not ending. It is only beginning. Do not let fear write the next chapter. Let hope hold the pen. The traveler opened their eyes. Nothing around them had changed. Yet everything inside them felt different. The path ahead was still unknown. But they no longer feared taking the first step. They smiled, not because every problem had disappeared, but because they remembered that even the smallest light can guide someone through the darkest night. My beloved child, do not mistake silence for absence. Some of life's greatest lessons arrive without thunder, without flashing lights, and without anyone else noticing. They come quietly, settling into the heart like the first rays of dawn after a long night. The traveler continued walking along the narrow path. Every step felt lighter than the last, yet questions still filled their mind. Why did I have to endure so much pain? The gentle voice returned. My beloved child, every storm leaves behind something valuable. Some storms reveal your strength. Others reveal who truly walks beside you. And some simply teach you that you are capable of surviving what once seemed impossible. The traveler reflected on the years behind them. There had been moments when they believed everything was over, dreams delayed, relationships broken, doors unexpectedly closed. At the time, each setback felt like an ending. Now they began to wonder if those endings had quietly been making room for new beginnings. The voice continued. Many people spend their lives chasing what shines, yet overlook what truly matters. Peace cannot be purchased. Joy cannot be borrowed. Hope cannot be stolen from a heart that chooses to protect it. As these words settled within, the traveler noticed something unusual. The path that once appeared dark was now lined with small wildflowers. They realized the flowers had likely been there all along, they had simply been too overwhelmed to notice them. The voice spoke again. You have often asked why blessings seem delayed. But consider this. A seed hidden beneath the soil may appear forgotten, yet every day it is quietly growing. The traveler knelt beside one of the flowers and smiled. Growth often happens where no one can see it. So does healing. So does faith. The wind carried a sense of calm unlike anything the traveler had felt before. Then came another message. My beloved child, release the weight of comparing your journey to someone else's. Every soul has its own season. Some bloom in spring. Others in autumn. Neither is late. These words reached deep into the traveler's heart. How many nights had they measured their worth against the success of others? How many dreams had they abandoned because someone else seemed further ahead? For the first time, they understood that life was not a race. It was a journey. The voice gently continued. There are people waiting to meet the version of you that refuses to give up. There are opportunities waiting for the courage you have not yet discovered. Keep walking. The traveler looked toward the horizon. In the distance stood a great mountain. It seemed impossible to climb. Yet instead of fear, determination filled their heart. Every mountain is conquered one step at a time. Every difficult chapter eventually becomes part of someone's testimony. The traveler remembered every tear they had cried in secret. Every silent prayer. Every moment they whispered, "I can't do this anymore." Yet somehow, they had continued. The voice spoke once more. "You believed your greatest weakness was your sensitivity. In truth, it has been one of your greatest strengths. Compassion allows you to see what others overlook. Kindness plants seeds whose harvest you may never witness." The traveler realized that every act of love, no matter how small, had mattered. A kind word. A helping hand. A forgiving heart. These simple choices carried extraordinary power. As evening approached, the sky glowed with warm shades of gold and crimson. The traveler sat beside a quiet stream. The water reflected the fading sunlight. For a long time, they simply listened. Not to the noise of the world, but to the peace growing within. The voice returned one final time that evening. "My beloved child, tomorrow may still bring challenges. But remember this, courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is choosing to move forward despite it." The traveler closed their eyes. Instead of asking for an easier road, they asked for greater wisdom. Instead of asking for fewer storms, they asked for stronger faith. Instead of asking for certainty, they asked for the strength to trust each step. When they opened their eyes again, the stars had begun to appear. Each one reminded them that even in darkness, light never truly disappears. The journey was far from over. Ahead lay unexpected trials, surprising friendships, and a discovery that would change everything they believed about themselves. The greatest lesson was still waiting. And with renewed hope, the traveler stood once more and continued toward the mountain, unaware that the next chapter would test not only their courage, but also their heart. My beloved child. As the first light of morning spread across the horizon, the traveler stood at the foot of the great mountain. Its towering cliffs reached into the clouds, and for a brief moment, fear whispered once again. What if I'm not strong enough? The question echoed through the quiet air. Then came the familiar, gentle voice. My beloved child, every mountain appears impossible from the bottom. But no one reaches the summit in a single step. Great victories are built from small acts of faith repeated every day. The traveler took a deep breath and began to climb. The first steps were easy. Then the path became steep. Loose stones slid beneath tired feet. Sharp winds pushed against every movement. Dark clouds gathered overhead, and soon rain began to fall. The traveler slipped and fell to their knees. Discouragement returned. Maybe this journey isn't meant for me. The voice answered immediately. Do not confuse difficulty with defeat. The hardest roads often lead to the most beautiful destinations. Slowly, the traveler stood again. Each painful step became a quiet declaration. I will keep going. Hours passed. The higher they climbed, the quieter the world became. No crowds. No applause. No one cheering from below. Only the steady rhythm of determined footsteps. The traveler finally understood that many of life's greatest victories happen where no one else is watching. As evening approached, the rain stopped. The clouds began to part. For the first time, the traveler looked back. The valley below stretched farther than they had imagined. The path they had already conquered looked impossible from above. Tears filled their eyes. "I never thought I could come this far." The gentle voice spoke again. "This is why you must never give up too soon. Yesterday's impossible mountain becomes today's testimony." The traveler smiled. Perhaps every difficult season had been preparing them for this very moment. As darkness settled, a warm light appeared ahead. It came from a small cabin nestled against the mountainside. An elderly stranger welcomed the traveler inside with kindness. No questions. No judgment. Only warmth. The cabin was simple. A wooden table. A small fire. Fresh bread. Clean water. The traveler hadn't realized how exhausted they truly were until they finally rested. The elderly guide smiled. "There is something you should know." The traveler listened carefully. Most people believe strength means never falling. He gently shook his head. Real strength means standing up one more time than you fall. Those words settled deep within the traveler's heart. The guide reached beneath the table and placed an old lantern into the traveler's hands. "This lantern isn't magical," he said. "It simply reminds you of something you've forgotten." The traveler looked puzzled. "What have I forgotten?" The guide smiled. "That the light you've been searching for has been inside you all along." At that very moment, the gentle voice returned. "My beloved child, many people search the world for answers while ignoring the wisdom already growing within their own hearts." The traveler looked into the lantern. Its flame was small. Yet it filled the cabin with light. The voice continued. "Darkness never asks permission to enter. But neither does light. Even the smallest flame changes everything around it." The traveler understood. They had spent years waiting for someone else to rescue them. Waiting for perfect timing. Waiting until fear disappeared. Now they realized courage often comes before confidence. The next morning, the traveler thanked the elderly guide and continued climbing. The air was colder now. The path was narrower. Yet the traveler no longer focused on how far remained. They focused only on the next faithful step. Suddenly, the ground began to tremble. A loud crack echoed through the mountain. Rocks tumbled down the slope. The traveler froze. The path ahead had collapsed. There was no obvious way forward. Fear returned with full force. "Is this the end?" The voice answered with calm certainty. "No, my beloved child. Sometimes what looks like a closed path is simply an invitation to discover another way." The traveler looked carefully. Hidden behind the fallen rocks was a narrow trail they had never noticed before. It was difficult. It was unfamiliar. But it was open. With the lantern held firmly in hand, the traveler stepped onto the new path. They did not yet know where it would lead. But for the first time in many years, they trusted the journey more than their fear. And beyond the next bend in the mountain waited a discovery so unexpected that it would reveal why every tear, every delay, every unanswered prayer, and every difficult season had never been meaningless. The greatest revelation was still ahead. My beloved child. The narrow trail twisted through towering cliffs where even the sunlight seemed hesitant to enter. The traveler walked carefully, holding the lantern close. Every step echoed against the stone walls, reminding them that some paths must be walked with patience rather than speed. The gentle voice returned, calm and steady. My beloved child, you once believed that every delay was a punishment. But many delays are protection. There are roads you wished to travel that would have led you into greater sorrow. What seemed like rejection was often mercy you could not yet understand. The traveler paused. Memories flooded back, jobs that never worked out, friendships that faded, opportunities that slipped away, and prayers that seemed to remain unanswered. For years, those moments had felt like defeats. Now, standing on this hidden path, they wondered if each closed door had quietly guided them toward a better one. The trail soon opened into a peaceful valley unlike anything they had ever seen. Crystal clear water flowed through the center. Wildflowers danced in the breeze. Birds sang without fear. The air itself felt lighter. The traveler whispered, I have never seen a place like this. The voice answered, Peace has always existed, my beloved child. The storm only made it difficult for you to notice. The traveler sat beside the stream and watched the water flow over smooth stones. The voice continued. Look at the river. It does not stop because a rock stands in its way. It flows around the obstacle and continues toward its purpose. Learn from the river. The traveler smiled. For too long, every obstacle had convinced them to stop moving. Perhaps life was asking them not to stop, but to adapt. As they prepared to continue, they noticed an old wooden bridge stretching across the river. It looked fragile, weathered by time. Fear whispered again. What if it breaks? The gentle voice replied. Faith is not believing the bridge cannot shake. Faith is choosing to cross even when it does. With a deep breath, the traveler stepped onto the bridge. It creaked beneath their feet. The wind grew stronger. For a moment, doubt returned. Then they remembered every challenge they had already survived. Step by step, they crossed safely. When they reached the other side, they looked back. The bridge had not been as dangerous as fear had imagined. The voice spoke once more. How many blessings have you delayed because fear convinced you the bridge would fail? The traveler lowered their head. There had been countless opportunities left untouched because fear had painted disasters that never happened. The journey continued upward until the traveler reached a wide plateau overlooking valleys, forests, and distant mountains. The view was breathtaking. The voice grew warm with encouragement. My beloved child, never forget where you came from. The height you reach should increase your gratitude, not your pride. Those who remain humble continue to grow. The traveler closed their eyes and quietly thanked God for every lesson, both joyful and painful. As evening approached, the sky turned shades of gold and deep purple. A brilliant star appeared above the mountain. Its light was brighter than all the others. The traveler watched in silence. The gentle voice said, "That star is a reminder. Even when surrounded by darkness, one light can guide countless travelers. You do not need to become someone else. Simply become the person you were created to be." Those words settled deeply into the traveler's heart. For years, they had tried to imitate others, believing that success meant becoming someone different. Now they understood. Their greatest strength was not pretending to be another person. It was becoming their truest self, with kindness, courage, humility, and hope. The traveler stood and continued toward the summit. But in the distance, they noticed dark clouds gathering once more. Thunder rolled across the mountains. A powerful storm was approaching. The voice remained calm. "Do not be afraid, my beloved child. Some storms arrive not to destroy you, but to reveal how strong your foundation has become." The wind began to rise. The lantern flickered. The path ahead disappeared beneath swirling mist. The greatest test of the journey was about to begin. Would the traveler hold on to hope when they could no longer see the way forward? That answer awaited beyond the storm. My beloved child. The storm arrived with a force the traveler had never experienced before. The wind roared across the mountain, rain fell like countless silver arrows, and thunder echoed from peak to peak. The narrow path disappeared beneath the thick mist. For the first time since beginning the journey, the traveler could not see even a few steps ahead. Fear whispered once again. "You've come far enough. Turn back. It's too dangerous to continue." The traveler tightened their grip on the lantern. Its flame flickered in the wind, but it did not go out. Then the familiar voice spoke, not loudly, but with a calm that seemed stronger than the storm itself. "My beloved child, do not judge your future by the weather of today. Storms never last forever. Keep your eyes on the next step, not on the entire mountain." The traveler took one careful step. Then another. The rain continued, but each step brought new confidence. At that moment, the traveler realized something remarkable. The mountain had not become easier. They had become stronger. The storm that once would have stopped them was now becoming another chapter in their story. Hours later, the rain began to fade. The wind grew quiet. The clouds slowly opened. A brilliant sunrise poured golden light across the mountain, painting the rocks with warmth and filling the valleys below with shimmering light. The traveler had reached the summit. Standing there, they looked back over the path they had traveled. Every difficult climb. Every moment of doubt. Every tear. Every delay. Every closed door. None of it had been meaningless. Each challenge had shaped the person standing on that mountaintop. The gentle voice returned one final time. "My beloved child, you believed the miracle waiting for you was at the top of the mountain. But the greatest miracle was happening within you every step of the journey. That is where true transformation begins. The traveler realized they no longer carried bitterness. They no longer carried regret. They no longer allowed fear to decide their future. Instead, their heart was filled with peace. Not because life would never have another storm, but because they now knew they could walk through storms without losing hope. As they stood in the morning light, they noticed countless other travelers beginning their own climb below. Some looked discouraged. Some had stopped walking. Some believed they would never reach the top. The traveler smiled. They remembered exactly how that felt. Without hesitation, they walked back down the path, not because they had failed, but because they wanted to encourage others. To one person they offered a kind word. To another, a helping hand. To another, they simply listened. The light within them had become brighter through every act of compassion. The gentle voice spoke one last time. My beloved child, never forget this: the greatest purpose of reaching the summit is not to remain there alone. It is to become a light for those still searching for hope. Years passed. The traveler became known not for wealth, fame, or power, but for kindness. People often asked, "How do you remain peaceful even when life becomes difficult?" The traveler would smile and reply, "Because I learned that hope is stronger than fear, faith is stronger than doubt, and love is stronger than anger." Every storm eventually passes, but the strength you gain from walking through it remains forever. And so the story spread from one heart to another, not as a tale of fear, but as a reminder that every person can choose courage, compassion, and hope. If you are reading these words today, remember that this is a fictional inspirational story, but its message is one that anyone can carry into everyday life. When you feel weak, take one more step. When you feel forgotten, remember that your worth is not measured by the world's attention. When doors close, stay open to new paths. When fear grows louder, let hope speak louder still. When someone around you is struggling, be the light that helps them keep walking. The traveler looked one last time toward the horizon. The sun continued to rise. A new day had begun. Not because the world had changed overnight, but because one heart had chosen faith over fear, forgiveness over bitterness, and hope over despair. And as the morning breeze carried a quiet sense of peace across the mountain, the traveler smiled and whispered, "Thank you, God, for never leaving me, even when I could not see the way." From that day forward, every sunrise reminded them of one simple truth. No night is so dark that it can stop the dawn. No storm is so powerful that it can silence hope forever. And no life is beyond the reach of new beginnings.